Have you ever wondered what happens behind the scenes when global tensions rise to dangerous levels? The United States has a system that measures just how close we might be to nuclear conflict, a 5-level alert system that most of us have heard about in movies, but few understand completely. Today, we're diving into the DEFCON system, the nuclear war readiness scale that has only reached its second highest level once in history, bringing us terrifyingly close to global catastrophe. The DEFCON system, short for Defense Condition, was born in the shadows of the Cold War in 1959, when the threat of nuclear annihilation loomed over America and the Soviet Union. Created by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, this system provides a uniform way to gauge threat levels and prepare military forces accordingly. Think of it as a thermometer for measuring how hot global conflicts are getting, with each degree bringing us closer to potential nuclear exchange. At its core, the DEFCON system consists of 5 progressive alert levels, with DEFCON 5 representing normal peacetime operations and DEFCON 1 signaling imminent nuclear war. The President, Secretary of Defense, and Joint Chiefs of Staff determine these levels, which can vary across different military branches and command groups, depending on specific threats. Let's start with DEFCON 5, known in military exercise terms as fade out. This is the baseline, normal peacetime operations that can be sustained indefinitely. It represents what military planners call an optimum balance between readiness requirements and routine training. In other words, it's business as usual for the armed forces. Moving up to DEFCON 4, codenamed Double Take, we see increased vigilance. This level governs everyday operating procedures for most fighting units, with heightened security, surveillance, and intelligence gathering. The military analyzes political and military situations in areas of tension more closely. Most of the time, U.S. forces operate at either DEFCON 5 or DEFCON 4. Things get considerably more serious at DEFCON 3 or Roundhouse. This is typically the highest alert level during peacetime and represents a standby alert status. At this level, military personnel on leave are recalled to their units and preparations begin for potential deployment. The U.S. has moved to DEFCON 3 several times in history, during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, the Yom Kippur War in 1973, and following the September 11th attacks in 2001. After the tragic events of 9/11, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld ordered the military to DEFCON 3 as America reeled from the attacks on the World Trade Center and Pentagon. The heightened alert lasted 3 days before being lowered to DEFCON 4 on September 14th. Another notable DEFCON 3 incident occurred in 1976 when U.S. forces in South Korea increased their readiness level following the axe murder of 2 United Nations command officers at Panmunjom. The penultimate level, DEFCON 2, codenamed Fast Pace, means an attack is expected and war preparations are in full swing. At this point, heavy bombers are armed with nuclear weapons and fly continuous airborne patrols, supported by aerial refueling. Submarines, ships, and missile bases prepare for potential launch orders. This is just one step away from nuclear war. As far as we know publicly, the Strategic Air Command has only reached DEFCON 2 once, during the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962. The world truly stood on the precipice of nuclear holocaust as Soviet missiles in Cuba put much of the continental United States, Canada, and parts of Central and South America within range of nuclear strikes. B-52 bombers circled continuously, loaded with nuclear payloads, ready to strike if ordered. The highest and most severe level, DEFCON 1, codenamed Cocked Pistol, indicates that nuclear war is imminent or already underway. It represents maximum readiness for executing war plans. Fortunately, since the implementation of the DEFCON system, the United States has never reached this level, at least not that we know of publicly. What makes the DEFCON system particularly interesting is that current levels are classified information, not revealed to the public for security reasons. However, open-source intelligence organizations monitor global situations and estimate current DEFCON levels. As of May 2025, some monitoring organizations estimate U.S. forces are at DEFCON 3 due to tensions with Russia over Ukraine, particularly after Vladimir Putin placed Russian nuclear forces on alert in response to Western sanctions. The history of the DEFCON system provides a sobering look at how close humanity has come to nuclear conflict. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the most dangerous 13 days in human history, Soviet nuclear weapons in Cuba could strike Washington, D.C. in just minutes. President Kennedy and Soviet Premier Khrushchev engaged in a high-stakes game of nuclear brinkmanship that nearly ended in catastrophe. The evolution of the DEFCON system reflects how military readiness adapted throughout the Cold War. While initially designed primarily for nuclear threats from the Soviet Union, today's DEFCON assessments consider a more complex global landscape including terrorism, cyber warfare, and multiple nuclear-armed states. The system remains relevant even as the nature of threats has evolved. When we look at historical DEFCON levels, we get a clear picture of the moments when global security hung in the balance. The fact that we've never reached DEFCON 1 gives us hope, but the several occasions when DEFCON 3 was implemented remind us that nuclear threats remain part of our reality. From the Cuban Missile Crisis to the aftermath of 9/11, these heightened alert states mark moments when history could have taken a much darker turn. What do you think about living in a world where such a system remains necessary? Has the DEFCON system helped prevent nuclear conflict by creating clear escalation protocols, or does it potentially increase tensions by formalizing the path to nuclear war? The DEFCON system, while shrouded in some mystery, continues to play a vital role in America's defense posture. It provides a framework for military readiness that can rapidly respond to threats while offering enough flexibility to avoid unnecessary escalation. Though we hope never to see DEFCON 1 implemented, the system stands ready, a silent guardian against the unthinkable consequences of nuclear warfare. This information was compiled from declassified Joint Chiefs of Staff memos, historical records of military readiness during various crises, and public statements by defense officials regarding past DEFCON levels.